Italy. The peninsula's history is a wonderfully complex narrative that spans from empires and generals to brilliant artistic periods and inspiring revolutions. Today, we're going to examine a part of this history, focusing on the subtle but important shifts that delineate the parallel evolutions of the land and the language. Our story starts in the year 476 CE, when this man, Romulus Augustus, was deposed by this man, Flavius Odoacer, who thus became the first king of Italy, and consequently ended what had been the Western Roman Empire. In the long term, this had two important effects. First, the centralized governing structure of the empire eroded, leading to strife and marked political change. And second, the colloquial or vulgar Latin, spoken by common people such as soldiers, slaves, settlers, and merchants, began to diversify and fragment into the dialects that would go on to form the Romance languages. Subsequent invasions by the Ostrogoths, the Byzantines, and the Lombards devastated the peninsula with war and famine, and ultimately led the papacy, which was facing a swelling Lombard offensive, to appeal to the Franks, who then defeated the Lombards and ceded authority over central Italy to the Pope, thus establishing the Papal States. The Norman invasion of the 12th century ended the presence of both the Lombards and the Byzantines in the peninsula, as well as what had been the Islamic rule in the south, creating the Kingdom of Sicily, which would eventually join with the Kingdom of Naples to form the Kingdom of the Two Sicilies, which would continue under the power of various sovereignties for over 700 years. And this is a key point. The Papal States, with its center of power in Rome, and the Kingdom of the Two Sicilies, with its peninsular base of power in Naples, were often locked in contentious struggles for geographic and political sovereignty. Therefore, Chocharia, this land that lay between Rome and Naples, was rendered a liminal space, caught between the forces of political and cultural domination from both the north and the south. This then brings us up to the Middle Ages, the period which had the most profound influence on the development and proliferation of vernacular Italian, and most of this was the doing of the writings of three men. Enter Dante Alighieri, Francesco Petrarca, and Giovanni Boccaccio. Dante, Petrarch, and Boccaccio's contributions to the development of standardized Italian cannot be understated. The brilliance of La Divina Commedia, Il Canzoniere, and Il Decameron, and the fact that they were written in the Tuscan vernacular can to a large degree be credited with promoting the Florentine dialect to become the basis for what would eventually be known as standardized Italian. While these evolutions were occurring within the higher circles of scholars and aristocrats, dialects were continuing to transform and solidify in each region according to political and historical influences. The Spanish in Sardinia, the Austrians in Venice, the French in Naples, and the Muslims in Sicily, among others. These foreign influences would go on to help catalyze nationalistic urges into the Risorgimento, or the unification of Italy. Yet they also produced linguistic forms that could be mutually unintelligible. Thus, after unification, the idea of a national language was championed primarily by this man, Alessandro Manzoni. However, while standardized Italian became the official language, considerable linguistic diversity still existed, and regional languages and dialects are still spoken today throughout the peninsula, especially among the older generations. So this brings us back to Chocharia, this indefinite region with centuries of division between different powers, often from either Rome or Naples, which we can now see sits on a historic and linguistic fault line, and has continued to elude delineation. In 1922, Benito Mussolini seized power in Rome, and began a campaign to return Italy to its Roman imperial glory. Part of this reclamation included an attempt to give the indefinite region of Chocharia a new unified identity. Mussolini sought to accentuate modern Italy's ties to its past by creating a new province in 1927 that, as Sandro Giuliani wrote, has restored ethnic and geographical unity to an ancient region that for a long time the events of history had disremembered. This new province was named after its capital, Frosinone. Unfortunately, the resulting provincial boundaries were hastily drawn, with fascist political concerns foremost in mind, and Chocharia was left, and remains to this day, a distinct entity. Although Chocharia has persisted over a vast stretch of time with a unique cultural heritage, including its own dialect of Chocharo, the region itself has resisted historical classification and confounded expectation. Thus, it remains unbounded and indefinite, an enigma wrapped within the heart of Italy.